Mr. Chair, council members, and participants, we are now live.
Good morning, everyone. This is a public hearing of the Committee on Public Safety regarding Bill number 220577. And before we go into the hearing, I'd like Mr. Glass to be recognized to read a very important announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand the state law currently requires that the following announcement be made at the beginning of every remote public hearing as follows. Due to the current public health emergency, City Council committees are currently meeting remotely. We are using Microsoft Teams to make these remote hearings possible. Instructions for how the public may view and offer public testimony at public hearings of Council committees are included in the public hearing notices that are published in the Daily News, Inquirer, and Legal Intelligencer prior to the hearings, and can also be found on phlcouncil.com. Everyone who has been invited to the meeting to testify should be aware that this public hearing is being recorded. Because the hearing is public, participants and viewers have no reasonable expectation of privacy. By continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to being recorded. Additionally, prior to Councilman Jones recognizing members for the questions or comments they have for the witnesses, I will note for the record at this time that we will use the chat feature available in Microsoft Teams to allow members to signify that they wish to be recognized. In order to comply with the Sunshine Act, the chat feature must only be used for this purpose. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Glass. We're going to call the roll to establish a quorum, and will members please say a few words so that your image will appear on the screen. Mr. Glass.
Councilmember Brooks.
I am present, thank you.
Councilmember Gaudier. Councilmember Green.
I am present for the hearing.
Councilmember Gim. Councilmember Thomas.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, colleagues. I'm present.
Good morning.
Vice Chairman Johnson. Councilmember Gilmore Richardson.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, colleagues. I am present.
And Chairman Jones.
I am present. A quorum has been established. We will proceed by reading the title of the bill to be discussed today. Mr. Glass.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Bill number 220577, an ordinance amending Chapter 10-300 entitled Minors to revise evening curfew hours, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize the author of this legislation for comments and opening remarks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your grace and latitude in allowing us to have this hearing this morning. Know that that is greatly appreciated. I just wanted to say that we have to understand that we are in a state of emergency in Philadelphia, and we continue to struggle with gun violence, and no one is suffering more than our young people in the city of Philadelphia. They are our young people. They are our children. They are our babies. They are the next generation of our leaders, and they're getting caught up in too much dangerous activity and too many fatal situations, a lot of them simply because they're out later in the wrong place at the wrong time. Just this year alone, we have witnessed shootings of 92 children under the age of 18, with 23 shootings occurring after 10 p.m. We are besieged in our local communities, and we have to take action. We know how deadly the summer months have been in Philadelphia over the past few years. And it's under, my purview that we must do everything we can to keep our children and our young people safe, particularly while they are out of school. That's the key, while they're out of school. And so as the summer months begin, we must remain steadfast and treat this with the sense of urgency that it deserves for our children. And we're doing this from the perspective of elected officials, but also as community leaders and parents to ensure the safety and well-being of our young people. And I'm going to say this: if we do nothing, folks are mad. If we seek to do something, folks are mad. At the end of the day, we must do something. Last year, I updated the minor curfew law by simplifying the times and seeking to align with state law, particularly to help our young people who may have jobs and may have to work late and need travel time to get home. But while we were doing that, we were also developing community evening resource centers that would operate from the hours of 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. every single day of the week for young people and provide them with resources and help to get their families connected to resources. And I'm happy that we have 2 centers open currently. We're still working through some challenges with the 3rd center, and then we'll have 2 additional centers online, hopefully by the month of August. These centers have been able to service over 300 young people since their soft opening in December of 2021. And so, as our colleague and chair often states, we were building the plane as we were flying it, because again, there was no infrastructure for community evening resource centers. The old school curfew center model had been decimated in previous budgets. And so while we had curfew centers under the safe and sound model years ago under the street administration, none of that infrastructure existed any longer while we were seeking to modify the curfew and ensure young people had a safe space to go to in their community. So as we build this out, we know that it will take time to get all of them up and running in all of the divisions throughout the city, but that will help us with this issue and challenge we are facing. And I also want to say and mention that in previous years, there have been curfews just for the summer months in the city of Philadelphia. I was here as a legislative aide working with the Nutter administration when we had an issue with flash mobs downtown. And the administration contacted former council member Blondell Reynolds Brown, who they knew cared about youth and young people, and asked her to work with them on a modified curfew for the summer months only. And if you go back and look at the data and the information from that time in 2011, it was successful to help curb some of the challenges that we were faced with in the city for that summer. And I am of the belief that that's exactly what we need to do this summer. And again, as I stated previously, you do nothing and everyone's upset. You do something and they're still upset. But we have to do something. And that's what we are seeking to do with this bill today. So I humbly request and ask my colleagues for your support for this measure. The bill would sunset at the end of the summer on September 29th, which is our 3rd session coming back, just to ensure if we need to take any additional action, we'll have the ability to do so. We're using every tool in our tool belt to do what we can for our young people. Thank you so much, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
So well said. So on point. And you can tell when public policy is the right thing to do when you can relate to it in your actual administration of your office. There's this commercial corridor that you're very familiar with. It's called 54th Street, where one of my staff who lives in an adjacent apartment came out to go to the corner store, and there was a tender age child walking up and down the street trying to get into that very same corner store. Now, why was that young person unattended? Why, after 11 o'clock, would they be on the street? And if you multiply that type of situation by South Street and by some of the, pop-up block parties that we have, where often they are the center of some type of violent act, we should safeguard, protect as many of our babies as we can. So I'm thankful for you bringing this forward. Are there any other members of the committee that would like to say a few words? Seeing none, Mr. Glass, what is the first panel to testify on this bill?
Mr. Chairman, the first witness to testify is Deputy Commissioner Gary Williams.
Deputy Commissioner, are you there? Are you connected?
Good morning. Yes,
Good morning.
I am.
How are you?
How are you? I'm well, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much.
State your name for the record and please begin your testimony.
Yes, my name is Gary D. Williams, and again, I'm the Deputy Commissioner for Juvenile Justice Services. First and foremost, I just want to thank City Council, in particular the Public Safety Committee, for hosting this hearing. Thank you for your partnership in this very important work. As I mentioned, I'm the Deputy Commissioner for Juvenile Justice Services, and today we have been asked to provide testimony in response to Bill number 220577, introduced by Councilmember Gilmore Richardson. The bill aims to amend Philadelphia's minor curfew law. While DHS does not enforce laws, we do work to engage youth in positive activities as well as community engagement. DHS's Juvenile Justice Division focuses on reducing the number of youth in detention. Throughout the years, we have increased the use of diversionary programs and services. We have also decreased the reliance on out-of-home placement. Instead, we prioritize community and home-based supports for Philadelphia children, youth, and their families. One example is the Community Evening Resource Centers program. We have 2 community-based sites that are in the south and southwest sections of the city. As many of you know, these sites were created in collaboration with City Council, specifically championed by Councilmember Gilmore Richardson. The centers provide a site-based service to youth ages 10 to 17 and are open 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. To engage youth, the providers who operate the centers promote their services to surrounding neighborhoods and invite older youth to use their services. The centers are also able to receive youth who have come to the attention of the Philadelphia Police after curfew violation. Staff members at the centers connect with youth to promote positive youth development, with the emphasis of family engagement, conflict resolution, violence prevention, mentoring, coaching, and other service linkages. The centers also offer structured activities to keep youth engaged. For example, the South-based site, which is operated by Diversified Community Services, Dixon House, has a week-long schedule. The schedule is filled with homework support, yoga classes, cooking instructions, and movie nights. They also have a gym in which youth engage in sports activities. This site recently hosted a Community Evening Resource Center Youth Appreciation Day to offer positive affirmations for community youth and families. The Southwest-based site, which is operated by Community of Compassion, also offers a full week of programming. There you will find youth engaged in drone programming, financial literacy classes, and peer mediation. And each Wednesday, youth participate in Cops, Kids, and Camera, which is a program partnership with the Philadelphia Police to connect youth with photography skills. The program was featured on 6ABC last month. For DHS, it's all about building trust with the youth and families of our community and creating a safe place for them. We fully support any resource that allows our youth and children to find peace, learn new skills, and connect with positive role models. To date, the center has served 298 youth, and we look forward to engaging with more of our next leaders of tomorrow. With the support of City Council, we have issued an RFP to establish 2 additional sites in the central and northwest sections of the city. In closing, I understand that members of the committee may have additional questions. I'm happy to answer any questions related to the work that we do. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your
testimony.
Thank you so much for your testimony. It is encouraging to note that this legislation that is being proposed by Gilmore Richardson also goes with another shoe that falls to say give them something to do. So that do something is also paired with something to do. So I think that's really good. Can you tell me, when a young person is picked up for curfew violation, how do we go about contacting the parent, guardian, or where? How does that process work?
Sure, thank you. The young person is escorted to one of the centers. The first and foremost responsibility of the police officer is to try to get the young person back home. If that fails, the young person is escorted to the center, and they actually go through an intake process. Information is gathered directly from that young person. There's an assessment on if the young person is connected to formal programming. And at that point, efforts are made to actually connect the counselors and the staff with the actual caregivers. In the interim, the young person is given something good to eat, provided a safe place to stay for that period of time. And the idea is to identify those young people in that moment who are not connected to formal programming. And if they're not, invite them back into that center or a structured activity in their particular neighborhood.
I think that is one of the tools, as Member Gilmore Richardson talked about, on our tool belt that we have to use more. Sometimes due to no fault of their own, sometimes parents are engaged with second jobs, things like that, and it is incumbent upon us to make sure that these young people get every opportunity to be connected with those services. How much does DHS then intervene? So here's a scenario. This happens to Gilmore Richardson once, it happens twice, next week she's back. At what point does DHS intervene?
DHS will get involved formally if, in fact, there is a dependency issue, meaning if there is a level of neglect, if there is a inability to keep a young person safe and provide their basic needs. If that is determined, then we would formally get involved. However, if there is issues around lack of resource, if there's issues around environmental factors that really kind of fall under poverty, we have an array of prevention programs that we would connect that family to. Our first order of business is really to meet that specific need. We know that a lot of our families in the city of Philadelphia are, in a lot of cases, are dealing with environmental factors, poverty issues, and do not require the heavy-handedness of CPS or child welfare agencies, mandated agencies. And so our first order of business is to assess that and connect them with relevant programming to keep them out of the formalized system.
So Member Richardson has been down to those centers on numerous occasions. Now I know why she likes hanging out there. Member Richardson, would you like to be recognized?
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And you've already asked a number of the questions, and I have just two questions for Mr. Healy when we get to his testimony. But I wanted to thank DC Williams for all of his work. He has worked with us behind the scenes for months with Commissioner Ali and the Office of Children and Families and so many others to sort of put this model together. I mean, it is daunting in city government to see a program go from idea to, actually in operation. And so I just want to thank you for all of your work. I have visited both of the centers that are up and running several times each during the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. And the young people are always engaging in wonderful activities, particularly around conflict resolution and learning cooking skills, and the wonderful game room over at Dixon House with the and all the lights that the young people love. They love those neon lights around the walls, and they have the bean bags, and it's just a wonderful atmosphere for young people to be in. And I just wanted to ask for the record that young people can also voluntarily go to the centers as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Councilwoman.
Okay, great. And then my second question is just a timeline update relative to the additional two centers for Central Division and also for Northwest Division. And if you could just notate the police districts that those two centers would cover, because you know that what we're seeking to do is have coverage across all divisions so that, that process can work of getting more young people to the centers. We know that, and I can ask Mr. Healy when we hear from him, that a young person is reconnected with their family, or at least you try to reconnect them and reunify them with their family as a first step. And then the next step, if they're close, will be the curfew center, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep. In terms of the timeline, we actually are on track to actually have the two additional circ centers open end of August, beginning of September. We're actually in the midst of the RFP process. We're hearing presentations from various applicants. And so we certainly feel good about that opening deadline. In terms of location, as you had mentioned, we're actually going to stand one up in Central Division. That's inclusive of the 6 the 9th and the 22nd Police District. And then we also are standing one up in the Northwest Division. And that is inclusive of the 5th, 14th, 39th, and 35th Police District.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Thank you so much, DC Williams, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Member Richardson Gilmore. Okay, are there any other questions from members of the committee for this witness?
Mr. Chair, this is Councilmember Thomas. Just one question.
Mhm.
When and if this was answered, I do apologize. If a young person has a job, and they're under the age of 18, and their job lets them off work at 9:45, and they have a commute that puts them out past our curfew, what is that process going to consist of?
If from our vantage point, if the young person is brought to the center as a result of being out at that time, there's obviously there's going to be an assessment, and that being a very legitimate reason, there's an expectation that there's coordination between the center, the family, and to make necessary communication to make sure that things are handled appropriately in terms of having this young person be encouraged to continue working. That could include, that's a very good question, but it could include working with the family to strategize a transportation plan to get that young person home without incident.
I just want to be clear for the record that there will be no, it won't be consequences for that young person who, has a job and maybe they got off work a little late or whatever may take place. And, we know that they're working. We're not going to punish those young people. Is that correct?
No, not at all from our vantage point. Again, there's been instances where young people have been out past curfew. However, there's been formal programming, and I'm talking about youth who might be under the jurisdiction of the court. There's appropriate programming, and then there's an allowance that is made, an exception that's made to allow that activity to continue. But by no means, the intent of the curfew centers is not to be punitive, and our collaboration with the law enforcement is not to be punitive at all.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Member Thomas, good questions and appropriate. A lot of our young people, that's the way they eat. They have to augment the family income through small jobs, and it's a good, positive way to earn money, getting a job. So we don't want to discourage that kind of thing. Thank you so very much. Any other questions for this panelist?
Mr. Chair.
Member Gim, how are you?
Yes, good morning. Good morning. And
Good
good morning, Deputy Commissioner. Thank you for your work, and thank you to the sponsor of this bill for her tremendous work on the curfew centers. This has been extremely important. I did want to ask whether you had any assessment at all about like the distribution between young people who are brought to the community centers versus young people who voluntarily show up.
As you know, we opened the centers in December and had a period of ramping up. I would venture to say there are more of the young people who are actually engaged by way of community engagement from the respective centers at this point in time. But we have full capacity at any given point, Councilmember Gim. A center can service anywhere from 30 to 50 young people. But to answer your question directly, at this point in time, there's more young people who actually come to our attention by way of community engagement.
Okay. And do you have any data or percentage on the number of young people who are brought into the center as a violation of the curfew? Like, even if it's less than 10%, less than 20%?
Yeah,
do you have any ideas?
Yeah, I don't have that data. I will say that I know for certain it's more due to the actual engagement of neighborhoods, et cetera, but I don't have the specific data in front of me.
Yeah. And do you anticipate a significant increase in the centers as a result of the curfew change?
We are actually anticipating an uptick in light of the recent events. So much so that we've actually put on notice, the circs on notice, that we wanted to make sure that the staffing was increased in anticipation of an uptick in violations. So we're prepared for that.
Okay, great. Um, and then I did just want to take a moment, although not directly related, but just to thank again, Councilmember Gilmore Richardson and yourself, Deputy Commissioner, because I think what we're trying to do is focus in on young people who really need services and assistance. I do think that the curfew center's engagement process indicates that there are a number of things that the city should be doing to engage young people in the evening hours. I think we've made it very clear in our city council body that it's unacceptable to have, so few programs for young people in neighborhoods and communities where they live between Friday evening and Monday morning. We don't have a rec center open. We don't have libraries open. And so this city council really has pushed hard to get the rec centers open, which we hope that we will be able to do at a few of them. But, I do think for this committee that it is a matter of public safety to engage our young people. I don't think of it in terms of like a threat, or anything like that. I would couch it in terms of protecting them, um, you know, uh, creating activities, other types of options, things that can be done. And so I do think that the engagement of our young people right now, as we are on the cusp of another hot summer, has to be a top priority for the city. And one of the reasons why I think the budget pushed so hard for the rec centers, for expansion and evening hours. I did just also want to take just a point of privilege to thank Deputy Commissioner Williams for his tremendous work in working on a pilot discharge program for youth leaving the Juvenile Justice Services Center. Again, this is not additional money that has to be spent. This is just a shifting of existing personnel, changing our timeline to meet young people's needs. So youth from the Juvenile Justice Services Center are probably among those young people who are at greatest risk of harm. That includes harming others as much as themselves being harmed. And they are now going to be discharged with a pre-discharge meeting that's going to talk about support services, the need for relocation if needed, housing, schooling, emergency. I think emergency if they are involved in a situation that they need help getting out of. Deputy Commissioner Williams, as much as he's been working as closely with you, Councilmember Gilmore Richardson, he's also been working really hard with so many other people, including our office, on really ensuring safety, targeting it towards young people who are at high need. And I just want to thank Commissioner Williams, and just, I don't know if you wanted to have a chance to share a little bit about that or how it's going or things that you need, but it's helpful to put it on our radar, as a public safety committee.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, and thank you for your partnership in that work, part of the work as well. As you mentioned, the pilot is well underway, and I'll just mention this: it is a truly authentic, multidisciplinary approach whereby the discharge planning meetings include DA's office, public defenders, CBH, Philadelphia School District, and more importantly, the youth and the parent and caregiver. And so we're off to a great start. Looking forward to report out on favorable outcomes. And again, thank you for your support and City Council support around this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Deputy Commissioner, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Member Gim, I just want to applaud you on the warm handoff from the Juvenile Justice Center. I think it's critical. And it's a part of a number of things that include this curfew bill that are being done to address our vulnerable youth. Day before yesterday, I was out at Tustin Playground. We were cutting the ribbon on the mural and new basketball courts there. And aside from the ribbon cutting, there was a group of young people that were adjudicated to the mural program. They had come in, it was about a dozen of them. They had come in, helped pitch in, clean, paint that center. And it was clear to me that these small things add up to a big thing. So what you're doing, Member Richardson, what you've done, Member Gim, are a part of the solution that eventually creates a tipping point for our young people in a positive way. So I saw it the other day and thought of you guys, and was thankful for these little bites that add up to a big sea change for our young people. So thank you very much.
I know that Commissioner Williams, we had talked about seeing if we could do any relocation money. We'll still try to keep working on that and working closely with our public safety chair. So thank you very much. And the floor is yours, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other members of the committee wish to question the witness? Seeing none. Mr. Glass, who's next?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to state for the record that Councilmember Gaudier is present.
Member Gaudier, welcome.
And the next witness available for testimony is Inspector Fran Healy.
Inspector Healy, how are you this morning? Are you
Good
connected?
morning, sir.
There you go.
Yes.
State your name for the record and begin your testimony, please.
Sure. Good morning, Council. My name is Fran Healy. I'm a Special Advisor to the Police Commissioner Outlaw here in Philadelphia. We didn't supply any written testimony, but I'm here to answer any questions. But first and foremost, I'd like to thank Council Member Gilmore Richardson for her passion and commitment on the subject matter. Over the years, we've worked together, and that's very much appreciated on this side of the criminal justice system per se. This is not a crime. I mean, these are children that are out late and actually get in trouble. Oftentimes, so we appreciate their passion and commitment that you've put forward. But we fully support the amendment, and that would basically be the summarization of my testimony. But I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
So what do you think the impact will be this summer on trying to keep our babies safe?
Well, I mean, this is my own personal opinion, but oftentimes when you see a shooting incident where there's multiple people and you see 24, 25-year-olds with a 17 or an 18, that's a problem. I mean, obviously those kids should not have been out usually at these times, but also they're hanging with the wrong people. So I don't have like a statistical number, but I said if we can save one kid from being shot out there, this is a huge win and well worth all our effort. But I do believe it'll have a much bigger impact than just one. It's only temporary. It's for the summer. It's I believe. So the issue from 12 to 10 o'clock, I think could have a big difference. Like I said, you get the older kids, you may not be able to get them all, but those young kids that are very impressionable by older people, I think this could be a very, very big help. Our numbers have increased dramatically from this year to last year. We have just a total of year to date up to this date. We had total 450 curfew violations last year. As of the 9th, we have 914 this year. So we are aggressively going out there trying to do as a crime prevention method of getting these children off the street as best we can, get them home. We're not trying to penalize them, but we're just trying to get them out of harm's way, quite frankly. So I appreciate all the efforts the council has put forward on this issue.
Member Richardson?
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Inspector Healy, for all your work on this issue over the years. I know we go way back working on these issues, so I wanted to say thank you so very, very much for your work. And to Commissioner Outlaw, and particularly to DC Dales. I don't know how we do this without you, DC Dales. Thank you so very much, wherever you are, for all the work that you do to help us on this matter. And I know I call DC Dale sometimes at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and he answers the phone. So I just wanted to say thank you. For the record, while Inspector Healy is here, I wanted to just notate and reiterate the numbers that Inspector Healy talked about year to date for the curfew violations, so that we understand the impact of what we're doing in this legislative body from a data perspective. And you know that we did update and tried to simplify the curfew last year, around this time last year. And so we have 445 curfew violations at that time. Okay, and that was right around the time that we passed that bill. Year to date this year, we have 914. With the most, Councilmember Jones, you'll be interested to hear this, in our Southwest Division, which would be 16, 18, 19, and 12. Okay, and so that includes our 19th Police District, Councilmember Jones. And so we have a lot of work to do on this matter, and I'm appreciative of the partnership that we have with the police department and all the divisions. And I wanted to just take the time out to thank the captains that I've been out with late at night, who rode in the car with me for hours, who've taken me out. You know, they weren't riding with me, I was riding with them. And had to put on the bulletproof vest and, you know, just do what we needed to do for those nights. So thank you so much to the 19th District, Captain McKeever, and the 5 Squad, who's out on that evening swing. And then also to Captain O'Donnell down in the 17th, and Officer Leilani Velasquez, who I was out with. I thank you all so much for the work that you do, and for allowing me to go out with you to the curfew centers, and also to both the curfew centers where we also visit separately. One question I wanted to ask was relative to the centers that we're seeking to open, one in Central Division and Northwest Division. Northwest Division also had the second highest amount of curfew violations for this year, and it was also like that last year. Where do we see most of the issues in the Northwest Division? I wasn't sure if we had that information, because they have over time consistently ranked in the number 2 spot for curfew violations. But for Councilmember Jones and Councilmember Gaudier, still at number 1 is Southwest Division with 12, 16, 18, and 19.
Did you happen to have that information?
Which exactly districts were you looking for, ma'am?
Northwest.
Northwest Division went from 78 in 2021 to 201 in 2022. So it's
Yeah.
quite substantial.
Okay, well, we look forward to continuing to work with you. Inspector Healy, for the record, I just wanted to get this on for this hearing. When a young person is picked up for a curfew violation, is the first step to try to reunify them with their parent or guardian? Then what would be the second step if that does not take place?
Yeah, that's be definitely the first place, trying to connect with a family member at all costs. Without a resource center available, the individuals will be ultimately transported to like a DHS facility. So we try to connect them there.
Sure.
But the more research facilities makes this much better. So like I said, I'm looking forward to the ones in Central as well as in Northwest. That'll be amazing. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you so much, Inspector Healy. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Member Richardson. Are there any other questions for Inspector Healy? Seeing none. Thank you so very much, Inspector. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for all your help.
Mr. Glass, who is our next witness to testify?
Mr. Chairman, there are no other witnesses to testify on this bill.
Are there any others who wish to testify on bill number 220577? Hearing none, this concludes our public hearing. We will now ask the witnesses who have testified to disconnect, and we will engage in our public meeting to address bill number 220577. We'll give them a second to disconnect, and then, Mr. Glass, can we call the roll to make sure we have a quorum for our public meeting.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Councilmember Brooks. Councilmember Gaudier.
Present.
Councilmember Green.
I am present.
Councilmember Gim. Councilmember Thomas.
And I'm present.
Vice Chairman Johnson. Councilmember Gilmore Richardson.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and colleagues. I am present.
And for the record, Mr. Chairman, Councilmember Gilmore Richardson has been temporarily appointed to the committee by Council President Clark.
Good addition. Very good addition.
And Chairman Jones.
I am present, and we have established a quorum. And I will call upon Member Green for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
am also present. My apologies.
No, that's quite all right. Member Green, can we call on a motion for bill number 220577?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that bill number 220577 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council this morning.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second and third to have this bill moved out of committee with a favorable recommendation and with a rule suspension to allow first reading at our next session of council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? The ayes have it, and bill number 220577 has been approved. With that, this concludes the business of the Public Safety Committee of City Council. Thank you so much for your early rising after a late night. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very, very much, colleagues. I offer my sincere gratitude to each and every one of you. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, guys. See you on the other side.